Everything is exactly as it should be. It was the spring of 2000. I was sitting in my bathtub, staring blankly at the beige tiled wall in front of me. The water was lukewarm, but I'd been there for nearly 2 hours, totally lost in a cold, deep well of despair. Just a few months before, I'd lost my life savings. I felt like a complete and utter failure, and it wasn't just a feeling. It felt like the word failure was indelibly tattooed on my forehead, visible to the entire world. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of the stupid mistakes I had made, the missed opportunities, the sheer foolishness of it all. I had no idea where I could go or what I could do. My identity had been wrapped up in my success, and now it was all gone. I was just lost. After what felt like an eternity, something happened. A voice in my head, not my own, cut through the noise of my thoughts. It was a whisper, but it was clear and insistent. The words were, "Everything is exactly as it should be." My first reaction was pure repulsion. I felt a surge of anger. What do you mean exactly as it should be? My life is a complete wreck. This is the worst moment of my entire existence. I pushed the words away, but they wouldn't leave. They kept running through my mind over and over like an endless loop. Everything is exactly as it should be. Over the next few days, I kept coming back to them. I started to repeat them to myself, not out of belief, but out of a desperate curiosity. Everything is exactly as it should be. It became my mantra. I started to notice that when I said it, the tension in my shoulders would ease just a little. The knot in my stomach would loosen. I wasn't happy about my situation, but the resistance to it, the fighting against what is, began to dissolve. And in that dissolving, something else started to appear, a sliver of peace. This statement is simple, and it can sound infuriating. It can sound like a lazy excuse for inaction or a cold dismissal of pain. I can promise you it is neither. This isn't a passive statement. It is an invitation to discover a radical freedom that comes from a different kind of observation, a profound truth that the greatest spiritual teachers and philosophers have been pointing toward for centuries. In this video, we're going to deconstruct this simple phrase and explore how it can shift your thinking, your being, and your life. So let's start with a prayer you might already know, but perhaps haven't thought about in this way. The Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. For so long, I focused on the courage part, wishing I had the strength to change my circumstances. I was completely missing the most crucial and often most difficult part of that prayer, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. This is the core of our statement. Serenity is a profound act of acceptance. It's not about being a passive victim who just shrugs and gives up. It's about recognizing that the present moment is what it is. The past is what it was. You can't change what has already happened, and you can't change the circumstances of this exact second. And here's where the power lies. This acceptance isn't a cold, stiff resignation. It's about a deep, open-hearted welcoming of all that is. Welcoming the good, yes, but also welcoming the pain, the sadness, the frustration, even the parts that you don't like. This is the truth. You can't change what is, but you can stop fighting it. And in that surrender, in that welcoming, you create the space for something new to emerge. You see, as long as you are obsessed with wanting things to be different than they are, you are demanding the impossible. The moment you wish things were other than they are is the moment you become powerless. You are a prisoner to a negative obsession, fighting a battle that can never be won. But when you stop fighting, something incredible happens. The energy you were wasting on resistance is released. This released energy is what becomes the motivation and the courage to take authentic, conscious action. The courage to change things only arises after acceptance. The more deeply you accept what is, the more you increase your capacity for courageous action. The embracing of what is gives you the capacity to be an empty vessel that can receive courage. Courage doesn't have to be some grand, dramatic gesture. Sometimes it starts with very simple things. For me, in that bathtub, it was about getting out of the water. It was about taking a walk. And for the first time in weeks, noticing the sky, the trees, the beauty that was still all around me, even while my world felt like it had collapsed. That simple, courageous step of moving forward, of being with what is, changed everything. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next as we dive into the idea of being in the present moment. Now, let's dive even deeper. Once we release our obsession with trying to change the past or control the future, we're left with the only thing that is actually real, the present moment. Our suffering comes from the mind's constant projection into the past, where we replay regret and guilt, or into the future, where we create anxiety and worry. The mind is a time-traveling machine, and it's almost always leaving the only moment where true peace is available. The practice of being present is simple, though far from easy. Just be with what is. It means dropping the mental commentary about the present moment and simply experiencing it without judgment. The simple fact is that what we call me is just an illusion, a thought, a concept, an identity we've created that's separate from the rest of life. This illusory me is what thinks I'm a failure, or this shouldn't be happening to me. But when that me is seen for what it is, when it dissolves, all that's left is the effortless, seamless, continuous unfolding of life itself. The statement, everything is exactly as it should be, is simply the natural, non-resistant recognition of that truth. The full realization of the deep meaning and truth of this statement results in a perceptual shift. It's not about mentally agreeing with an idea. It's about taking in what is at a deep cellular level. It's a letting go so complete that you undergo a fundamental shift in your being. You move from the perspective of a separate individual to the perspective of pure awareness, which is the space in which everything appears, the resistance, the stress, the desire for things to be different. That's all part of the story the mind is telling itself. But the moment you look closely, you can see there is only the unfolding. There is only what is. This isn't about being detached or unfeeling. It's about letting go of the desperate clinging to a mental story and finding freedom in the pure, unedited reality of the present moment. We've talked about the serenity to accept what is and the freedom found in being with the present moment. But how do you actually do it? How do you stop a racing, resistant mind? The mind is always finding problems, but the deep understanding that everything is exactly as it should be often reveals a painful yet liberating truth, that the problem we are fighting against is often the situation we need. It was our own thinking that creates the perception that it is a problem. Our liberation isn't about resisting the situation, but about changing our relationship to it. When we stop resisting what is, the path to peace opens up. Many people hear the phrase, everything is exactly as it should be, and immediately think of predestination as if every detail of our life is on a rigid, pre-written script. But that idea is a paradox in itself. The very concept of predestination depends on a linear view of time, a past, a present, and a future where a future event is already written. But what if time, as we know it, is an illusion? From a deeper perspective, there is only the timeless isness of the present moment. The past is a memory, the future is a mental projection, but the present is the only thing that actually exists. When you truly drop the illusion of time, you are left with only the perfect, self-contained reality of now. There is no future should be, because everything simply is. The entire universe is a continuous, unfolding expression of this moment. This is not a statement of blind faith. It is an invitation to direct observation. When you observe reality without the mind's constant commentary, without the filters of judgment, regret, or resistance, you begin to see its inherent perfect order. The tangled threads of the tapestry begin to make sense. You see how every circumstance, every seemingly random event is part of a seamless flow. It's an observation that leads to understanding, and it's a form of understanding that brings a profound peace. This truth is not confined to one philosophy or one teaching. It is a universal wisdom that echoes throughout history and across cultures. In Christianity, we are taught that God is all and in all. He is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. If God is everywhere and outside of time, then the present moment is a perfect expression of that divine presence. What is not an accident. It's a direct manifestation of divine being. To accept what is becomes an act of faith, a recognition that the divine is unfolding perfectly in every moment. So, where does this leave us? This is not a message about being passive. It's not about being a doormat or giving up on your dreams. It is about stepping out of the boxing ring of your own mind. When you stop fighting your life, the past, the present, and the future, you can finally begin to live it. So let's return to the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. The deep understanding of everything is exactly as it should be is the pathway to acceptance and the pathway to serenity. The courage that arises from acceptance is accompanied by energy. And with this courage and energy, you find the power to move forward on your path, changing the things you can as the present moment unfolds. The future is a conceptual abstraction. As you move forward, you are not moving into the future. You are moving on your path as the present moment unfolds. And as the present moment unfolds, everything is exactly as it should be. You succeed, you fail, you learn from your successes and failures, or you don't. But in the unfolding, everything is exactly as it should be. Many people sleepwalk through their lives, continually resisting what they can't change, lost in unnecessary worries, suffering, and desires that take them away from the serenity of the present moment. Then something happens that wakes them up. It may take a major disaster to wake them up. And then the wake-up call passes and they fall asleep again, continuing this pattern until they take their final breath at the end of their lives. Other people wake up from sleep and experience a perceptual shift that profoundly changes everything, and they are never the same again. They find acceptance and serenity, and their path leads them to new opportunities, growth, and deeply satisfying lives, often helping and leading the way for others. And however all of this unfolds, it is exactly as it should be. My hope is that this video in some way might serve as a wake-up call for you. The outcome will be exactly as it should be.